G'day, I'm Paul. I've always liked the BMW E30. I think it embodies what BMW is about: small, light, fun, and just really enjoyable to drive. This is kind of the same formula. It's fairly light, it's rear-wheel drive, and still has that fun to drive character. It is the BMW 3 Series. This one in particular is the cheapest one you can buy. It is the 320i. This competes with things like the Mercedes-Benz C-Class and the Audi A4. And I guess you could also say it competes with things like the Tesla Model 3 as well, if you want to go down that path. This is priced at just under $71,000. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car. If you want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use the time codes up on the screen there, or if you're on YouTube, just scroll down and use the chapters below. And if you haven't done so already, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you can find out every single time we drive base model cars. Let's talk exterior. So you've got 6 external colors to pick from. All but white is an additional $1,500. The only problem is the $1,500 doesn't really get you a very good paint job. If you look closely here, it's really quite wavy, and in those back corners there, you can just see that it's really, I don't know, just not a very impressive paint job at all. So I'd be pretty disappointed if I spent just over $70,000 on this plus the on-road costs and had that paint job. So anyway, if you put that to one side though, in terms of the design itself, I think this car looks fantastic. So BMW has gone off on a bit of a design tangent at the moment with things like the M3 and the M4, the new 2 Series. They're just, I don't know, being very adventurous with design, and I think this sticks to that traditional form. Looks quite aggressive, but on the same token, it's still quite stylish. So this one here is the M Sport. So it's got that M Sport package. You can get this in a luxury line as well, which kind of gives it that slightly classier look, but the M Sport really just gives it that aggressive overtone without sort of being over the top. Now down the front here, you've got these active vanes. These are actually designed to stay closed until the engine reaches operating temperature. That way it's more efficient, and then they can open when additional cooling is required. So it's all part of aero and efficiency, which is why they bother with all that stuff. You've got a bit of chrome around that piano black center section, and then down here you've got more inlets for cooling. Headlights, you get standard LED headlights with matrix LED. This car has the optional BMW laser headlights. We actually shot a video where we compared laser headlights to matrix LED and standard LED and halogen. If you want to watch that video, click up here. We found the results pretty interesting, especially with BMW laser headlights. Now around the side here, we've got 18-inch alloy wheels. I quite like the look of these. So you've got that sort of brushed chrome look on the outside, a bit of graphite on the inside there. Quite a classy looking wheel. And then with the M Sport package, you get M badges everywhere. So one on the side there, one on the wheel. The brakes look kind of small. This is the one thing that I kind of don't like. The bigger the wheel size you go on BMWs, unless you've got an actual full fruit M car, you get these really small looking brakes. Looks okay here with the 18, but keep in mind if you do option bigger wheels, it's going to look kind of strange with tiny brakes in there. In addition to that, the side profile of the tyre isn't too big. Now, this is a curious point because you can get adaptive damping with the 3 Series, but this particular car doesn't have it. So I'll be curious to see whether this is firm, because that's one of the biggest hang-ups I have with BMWs. They're beautiful to drive, but if you're not smart with the options and you don't get adaptive damping on some models, they can give you a backache. So let's see what it's like when we hit the road. But I'll reserve judgment until then. We've got an optional sunroof fitted to this car. And then if you come around to the back, shark fin aerial up the top there. These beautiful looking LED tail lights. I love that frosted look. It really makes this stand out at night time. 320i badge. You can debadge the car as well. So generally, if you see one of these on the road without badges, it means it is the entry level, because people don't want you to know that you got the entry level. But yeah, that is an option if you're mindful of that kind of thing. 2 real exhaust pipes as well, which is kind of cool. Let me know what you think of the design. Do you think the 3 Series still looks good? Do you think it looks better than the E30? Or do you think the E30 will remain one of the best looking BMWs? Let me know what you think down there. We're inside the 3 Series. Let's start off with the key. Here it is. So unlock. Lock is the BMW roundel there. Boot, and then you have the diamond, or what do they call that? That is the rhombus. I don't know what that is. Anyway, that down the bottom, that illuminates the car so you can spot where it is. Down the side there, you've got M badging, because this car has the M Sport package, and then blank on the back. It's a proximity sensing key, so you can just leave that in your pocket, and then once you're inside, you have a push button start down here. Now, let's talk styling. So being German, it is slightly bland, but what they've been able to do, and I quite like this, is break up the black with some of these brushed chrome highlights. It's sort of like an aluminium finish, but probably plastic. So instead of just being all black and dreary, it is actually kind of vibrant, and it pops a little bit. There's minimal use of piano black, thank goodness. But one of the downsides is they've gone with this matte plastic finish, and it looks okay, but it just is a tiny bit cheap. You can get, as an option on other BMW vehicles, metallic finishes on the buttons on the steering wheel and some of the buttons down here. So probably an option to think about. Speaking of options, the stuff that we'll talk about today is on this car at the moment. Some of the features will be optional. I'll point out whatever I can that's optional, but keep in mind, if you are ordering this, just triple check what is standard and what's optional. Don't take everything that I say here as gospel, because it might be different in your country or even in Australia, where they have different package options. Now, what about the materials around the cabin? So all of this stuff here is soft touch. It's like a rubber finish. Then you have these sort of cold to the touch finishes, and then you get sort of slightly harder plastic as you move down the cabin. How soft are the touch points? So over here, that feels pretty reasonable, and then the door's quite firm. We've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to other cars that we've tested before, follow the link in the description. Oh, by the way, on the durometer, I was stopped in the street randomly the other day by a bloke that watches our videos, and he said he loved the durometer and thought it was quite a unique inclusion. So I'm glad someone enjoys that. Now, what about build quality? Actually, all feels pretty decent. It's all nice and solid in here. Yeah, pretty impressed with that. Now, moving on to infotainment. This is the thing I find interesting about BMWs. If you look at all of the manufacturers out there, BMW really is starting to push the game forward in terms of their infotainment systems. I mean, they already were, but they're really going that one step further. And I don't know, I reckon these guys are probably second to Tesla now in terms of the tech inside these cars and how advanced it is. So let's start with the infotainment system. It's a 10.25-inch display, high resolution screen. It is touch sensitive, so you can use your finger to switch between the different menus. And then what you can also do is use the iDrive controller down here. The top is also touch sensitive, so if you are putting in navigation addresses, for example, you can write things in. I find that a little hard to use at times, but the option is there anyway. You have inbuilt satellite navigation, so this is standard to the car. You don't have to then pair a phone to get your navigation running. But if you do want to pair a phone, you have both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Apple CarPlay is wireless. I'll show you what that looks like. We'll click on this. So you've got a full screen integration, and if I go back here to the home menu, you can see what that looks like. So big screen, very sharp and very quick to rip through those different menus. There is one issue though, just like other cars we've tested with Apple CarPlay and a sort of iDrive-esque controller, you can't tap to the side like this to get across to the other menus. So if you see here, I can't then jump back over here. I have to really just keep scrolling through. So it's a limitation of the software as opposed to the hardware. So hopefully Apple will fix that with a future software update. Let's have a look at what Android Auto looks like. We'll click on that. So also full screen integration, touchscreen and all that sort of stuff. You will notice here when you go to the main menu that you actually get the maps as a sub menu over to the left-hand side. So I quite like that setup, really nice integration. On the music front, you have AM, FM, and DAB digital radio. You can also then stream through Bluetooth and connect devices to the car directly, and you have a 10-speaker stereo as well. It's worth pointing out here, when I mentioned that these are sort of becoming technologically advanced now, I'll jump down to the apps section. So what you can do when you buy the car, you just get a standard set of apps with the car. So these are the things that are on there at the moment. If you do want to buy additional apps, you can actually go into the BMW Connected Drive store and then add things to the car. So if you want to use remote engine start, for example, you can pay for that and have it added to the car as an over-the-air update. You can then also go through the things that you have paid for. So someone has already gone through on this particular car and added things like teleservices and the connected drive package as well. So yeah, this is where I was going at with the Tesla thing. So this is similar to the way Tesla does things. They allow you to do updates over there. They give you that software while your car's parked at home. BMW is now heading down the same path, and I think this stuff's really cool to see. Now, one last thing I want to show you ahead of the driver is a 12-inch display. I'll show you how that works. I'm going to turn the car on. So you get a whole stack of different options here on the screen in terms of what you want displayed. You can configure a lot of it as well. So over on the left-hand side, you have your fuel as a digital readout with the range time. Then you also have engine temperature and external temperature here, along with the drive modes. You'll notice as well when I switch between the drive modes, the display changes to accommodate those different drive mode settings. And then in the center, you've got a map overlay. This section here, you can also changes required as well. So pretty impressive setup. And I like the fact that this comes standard on the entry-level model. So let me kill that. Let's chat safety equipment. So you have autonomous emergency braking, you have an auto-dimming rear vision mirror, blind spot monitoring with a little light built into the wing mirror. You have a lane departure warning and a lane keeping assistant. It is disappointing though, you get standard cruise control, but no radar cruise control. You have to option that, which, I don't know, on a $70,000 car, I would have liked to have radar cruise control, I reckon. Parking, you have front and rear parking sensors. You can get a 360 camera as part of an option package, but it just comes standard with a rear view camera. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm just going to start the car first. Put it into reverse. There it is there. Yeah, quality's okay. It's not amazing. It's quite a sort of small display there as well. I'm pretty sure you'd be able to configure it so you just get the camera, but you've also got those sonar settings there so you can see front and rear as well. And then this also has the park assist feature, which has a reverse assistant as well. If you want to see how that tech works, click up here to watch a video we shot where we actually demonstrate this in another BMW. This feature actually is pretty cool. So have a look at that. Okay, quick question. BMWs. E30 is one of my favorites. Let me know what your favorite 3 Series is in the comments section below. Is it newer, older? Can you get your feedback? Moving on to practicality, and we'll start with connectivity. Where are you going to charge your stuff? So you have one USB-A port here, a 12-volt outlet. You have a wireless phone charger there for charging your phone. Inside the center console here, you have another charging port, but it's a USB-C port, so you do have a mixture of both, which is really good. Storage. Where are you going to put your phone? So yes, you can throw it down the front there for your charging, or you can slide it into these cup holders up the front. Coffee cup. Now the coffee cup this morning, I noticed when I put it in, it's just hard to get out while you're driving because you've got to sort of watch what you're doing, reach in, and it's a little tricky to reach. So I sort of propped it up with my keys, but it does fit in there and it is secure because you've got a set of teeth in there as well. That means when you are putting stuff like your bottle in, it slides into position there, which is nice and easy, and then it fits inside the door easily as well. Let's see if our big bottle fits in the door. No, it doesn't. Center console. So in here, the storage is pretty good. It's not overly deep, but it is a big storage cavity. And then over here we have our glove box. Now the thing with this is it looks okay, but if you actually try putting anything in there, when you go to close it, it kind of jams everything up the back there, so it's not the most practical space in the world. And then finally you have a slot just over here next to the driver's knee for coins and keys and that kind of thing. Okay, now let's talk comfort. So dual zone climate control up the front here. You'll also see this car has the heated seats as well. I quite like with the dual zone, they've got it integrated into this nice little digital display here. Then you have these metallic controls for your air vents as well. And then you adjust the temperature just off to the side here. So nice little setup there. In terms of the driver's seat and the passenger seat, both of those are electric. The driver's seat has memory on it. The seats themselves are pretty comfortable. You've got a number of adjustments you can make to them just to give you a little bit more comfort behind the wheel. The wheel itself, I love the M Sport wheel because it just fills the hands beautifully and it just feels, I don't know, it feels really sporty to be driving with, but it is also nice and comfortable to live with as well, with easy access to those paddle shifters. In terms of the steering, you can reach and tilt, adjust that. Now let's do a reach test. Yes, easy to reach. That's all easy to reach. And then your adjustable controls down here are easy to reach as well. Okay, second row. This is where you're going to see a little bit of compromise in comparison to an SUV. You can see here that with my seat in the standard driving position, which is pretty far back, I don't really have a great deal of knee room. Toe room's pretty compromised. And then getting in and out, I find it hard to get my shoes through this little gap here. Headroom is okay. They actually do a long wheelbase version of the 3 Series, the A4 and the C-Class just for China. I'd like to see that offered elsewhere in the world. What do you reckon? Do you think they should? Let me know down there. I just think it needs just a tiny bit more legroom and it would really accommodate us bigger Australians. In terms of other creature comforts, you have a third zone of climate control down here, 2 USB-C ports, air vents, map pockets. You have a center armrest with 2 cup holders there. So you can see it fits our bottle nicely. I'll get that out of the way. This is also a port into the boot, so you can get your stuff out if you need to. In addition to the ISO fixed points on the outboard seats, you have 3 top tether points. It is curious though that this center seat belt encroaches so much on the space of your left-hand side passenger. I'd imagine that would be kind of digging into them. So yeah, interesting placement there for the center seatbelt. Let's have a look at cargo space. So obviously this isn't an SUV. I know we always review SUVs, but sedans are still pretty practical in terms of cargo space. You've got 480 litres here to work with. The only downside is the entry aperture to your boot. It's a little bit tricky to get a hold of. Beneath the cargo floor, we have a battery, and then off to the sides, a first aid kit. Let's try putting our bags in and see how that goes. So, laptop bag there. I think this should fit long ways. There you go, no dramas at all. Okay, the other thing you can also do to expand that space a little bit is drop your second row. You've got little releases just here. Once they're pulled, you can manually pop those seats down to expand the space. Okay, we've just hit the road in the 3 Series. Let's run through the engine first. So under the bonnet there is a 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine. It makes 135 kilowatts of power and 300 newton meters of torque. Now it doesn't sound like a great deal, but you've got to remember that this car doesn't weigh all that much either. And that means that you don't need to cram a giant engine under the bonnet, but when you do, that's how these things become so fast. So this is a really good balance between weight management and also having a turbocharged 4-cylinder. All of that torque's sent through an 8-speed automatic transmission. No dual clutch here, so it is just a regular torque converter. And it's all the better for it as well, because dual clutches in these packages where they don't really produce all that much power are simply there for efficiency, and you end up ruining your driving characteristics just for the sake of saving a little bit of fuel. This really splits the balance there between a good driving experience and not using a great deal of fuel to begin with. On the fuel front, the official fuel consumption figure is 6.3 litres per 100 Ks. Quickly whip through our trip computer here. We are currently sitting on 6.7. So it's pretty much bang on, and that's with a mix of city and highway driving, so I'm really impressed with that. Keep in mind as well with the fuel economy that this car requires 95 RON premium unleaded petrol in Australia, so you will be paying slightly more every time you fill up at the pump. Now, how does it all feel behind the wheel? So, gearbox first. Let's give this a little mash here. Yeah, nice. That is very nice and responsive. So, back when dual clutches were the only option if you wanted fast shifting and, lightning fast responses, that was great. But now when you have advanced gearboxes like this one here, where all you need to do is push the throttle down and there's barely any lag, it really does bridge that gap and means that you do have a smooth driving experience all the time. One of the things I'm liking here is the stop-start system. So I'll roll into a stop. As it comes down towards 0, it kicks off and then restarts nice and smoothly and quickly. So it's not a mild hybrid system like you do find in the new C-Class or the updated C-Class, but it is quite smooth, and that's what I like about these stop-start systems. When they're not smooth, I just switch them off, and that makes them entirely redundant, but this one is actually quite good. So you slow to a stop, and it just stops off the brake, and then away you go. Yeah, let's talk drive mode. So you have Eco Pro, which basically just dulls all of your energy sapping devices. You have Comfort, which is just your standard drive mode, and then you have Sport. With Sport mode, you can also configure individual settings. So kind of pointless in this car with non-adaptive suspension, but you can configure your steering tune and the way that the engine and transmission respond as well, so that every time you push that button, you're getting your individual settings. Okay. Let's talk about the thing I'm really disliking about this car, and it is the ride. It is way too firm, and the problem is that you get the sporty feel behind the wheel because, as we'll discuss in a second, the steering feels great. But when you go over things like speed humps and potholes and corrugations, you feel everything that's going on. And this is the point that I made in the intro, that you have to get adaptive dampers. This car doesn't have adaptive damping, and as a result of that, it just feels way too firm. And I just don't know that really works for an entry-level car like this. It just doesn't make sense to have such firm suspension that it's not enjoyable to drive, and that's how I feel at the moment. It really just doesn't feel pleasing unless you're going for a blat. Every time outside of that, it's just way too much. Okay, let's dial it into sport mode. So I can immediately feel the steering's a little heavier there. Roll into the throttle here. Oh, this feels so good. It's what I love about the 3 Series. Rear-wheel drive, you have such good communication through the chassis. And look, it's got enough power to put a smile on your face, but it won't sort of put you into any danger. So the staggered tyre widths with 255 on the rear mean that you really get a nice hook up with the road. The throttle's nice and sharp in sport mode as well. It just kind of pushes you back, and it's just a smile-inducing car. I know every time I've driven like a a C-Class or an A4. They're nice, but in base level trim, they feel very base level and very soft and cushy. This, on the other hand, just has that engaging feel to it. And if you put the suspension to one side, I just feel like if you found yourself on a mountain pass, this is the car that's going to make you smile every single time in comparison to the competition. Now, what about 0 to 100? We don't have an official time from BMW, but this is how it went up against our stopwatch. On the visibility front, we're used to SUVs sitting up high, having that commanding driving position. This, on the other hand, you sit quite low and it's that sporty feel. So I can see clearly down the front of the car. I've got a nice head-up display there with all the information I need. The wing mirrors aren't huge, but they give me good visibility down the side of the car. Visibility out the rear is good as well. The envelope there of the rear window is pretty decent. So with front and rear parking sensors, it means parking in and around the city is a really straightforward process. And then if you're not confident, you can always option that extra package which adds the 360 camera and the semi-autonomous parking. Let's talk noise. So it's not the most quiet place to be seated. You're getting a little bit of tyre noise that comes into the cabin. It's most evident out on country roads, but for the most part it is quiet enough. It's just that is going to be the predominant noise that you hear when you are cruising at highway speeds. Now, not that you're going to ever be doing this, but just in case you do need a tow, there's a 1600 kilogram braked towing capacity. And then when it comes to U-turns, turning circle measures 11.4 meters, which is pretty standard for a sedan. Okay, BMW 3 Series, how much does it relate to that E30 that I like? Well, still quite a lot actually. So it feels really nimble behind the wheel. It's got that rear-wheel drive characteristic. The steering is direct. It is just the definition of a driver's car. It's not soft like the C-Class or the Lexus IS. It really is just a nice all-rounder. But it is ultimately let down if you don't get the adaptive suspension. And in this case here, the ride is just way too firm. This is an entry-level car, and yes, it has to be fun, but you can't have a ride that is so firm that you just get sick of it immediately when you're in the city. So please make sure you just spend a little bit extra for the adaptive damping. If you have purchased one of these, just make sure you tick that box before it gets delivered. So if you put those things to the side, it has lots of tech. It's beautiful inside. There's not a huge amount of legroom in the second row, but for the most part, it's going to be fine for short journeys. This is really the driver's pick in this segment, and it puts a big smile on my face, even in this entry-level form. So let me know in the comments section below, did you buy one? What do you think of it? Or did you go all the way up to like an M3 or something like that? Let me know what you think down there. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you like it and share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel so you can check out all of our videos. But until next time, take it easy.